Hello, good afternoon. This is Pastor Camelia Joseph in Houston, Texas, and I am with the Joseph Group. And tonight we're going to be talking about trying to answer any questions you have about grants and foundations. I was just sharing with those on the call with me that I didn't want to write grants. I mean, it wasn't something that I set out to do, is to be a grant writer. But I saw situations coming at me, needs that I saw, and it's like, I didn't have the money to do the program out of my own pocket. My church didn't have the money. And then sometimes, I was running nonprofits and we didn't have it. So I began the quest of learning to write grants. And at first I just went to every little free workshop I could get. The government, whenever they put out a grant, they'll usually have a little short grant writing workshop. And so I went to all the little free grant writing workshops that I could. And then finally, I decided if I wanted to be a winning grant writer, I was going to have to pay and get some training. And so then I began my quest of taking grant writing training, and eventually became a successful grant writer and was able to fund a number of programs that I wanted. Okay. I never had a desire to be a grant writer for hire, and still don't, And so, but I realized that it opened the door for me to do some things that I just would not have been able to do in the past. I had one of my first grants was I had I lived in Rochester, New York at the time, and I worked for a rehabilitation center for people with disabilities, a major one, and I was director of job placement there. And a gentleman came to me that was a teacher in the school district. And he said, I need some help. And they told me I should come and talk to you. So he told me that there were programs for developmentally disabled students for summer employment, but there was nothing for physically disabled students. And he wanted to see a program that would provide an opportunity for disabled students to be able to get summer jobs. And so I told him, I said, I'll write the grant if you work for me. You'll have to come run the program for me. So I wrote the grant, we got funded, I hired him full time. We got funding to put 30 youth to work that summer, and 3 or 4 summers after that, until I left Rochester and relocated back to the South. And it was a wonderful experience. We had 5 days a week, our kids went to work on somebody else's job, and we paid them through the summer employment grant. And on Fridays, they came to my office and I did a workshop with them on the world of work, exposing them to some career exploration. So forth. I had young people I had one young man, he wanted to be a photographer. So we placed him at Rochester Institute of Technology in the photography department, where they were teaching photography, so that he could just be around it. I had another young man that wanted to be an accountant. So we placed him at Monroe Community College, working there in the accounting department. And he went to DC to go to college. And every summer he came back and worked for the college. And when he graduated from college, they hired him. Wow. So, wonderful, wonderful testimonies. And that young man was deaf, right? So, but I would not have been able to do that had I not written the grant. Then my next project was, I was looking at the issue of people with disabilities having a difficult time getting employment. So I decided to write a grant to get funding to do an awareness program to train hiring managers and people that supervised to get rid of their fear, the myths and stuff that they felt, about hiring somebody that was disabled. So I wrote a grant. I hired a 3 full-time staff persons. One was a history major and photography major. The other one was my secretary, and the other one was just a helper for us. And what we did was I had them to research. Now, she was a history major. I had them to research all the research that had been studies that had been done about employment of people with disabilities. And we put all of that together in a 4 or 5 slide presentation workshop. And we marketed. I thought I was going to record it, but when I heard my voice on the, I thought, no. So I got one of the news commentators in the city to record it for us. And we took that workshop on the road. First of all, we offered it at my office, and I was going to offer it to like 60 HR persons was my limit. We wound up opening the door for 80. Out of that, the idea was for the HR persons to come to my office and go through it, go back to their offices and ask if we could bring it on campus. So the University of Rochester had us to come in every other Tuesday for about 4 months. The president of the university mandated that everybody in a hiring and supervising capacity go through the training. The University of Rochester also did it, and Rochester Institute of Technology. And then Rochester Telephone Company had us to come in and do it for them over a year period. Once a month, we would go in and we would do the training with about 25 supervisors, all in different locations that they had all around the county. And then we had people come into our office. I offered it at my office twice a month, and we would have 20 to 25 supervisors or hiring persons coming in and taking it at the office. So because of that, we had an opportunity to significantly impact the open doors for people with disabilities to be able to get jobs with people who would have been afraid otherwise. But without that grant funding, we would not have had it. I had a friend that was an eye doctor, and he had this vision for he wanted to teach young people how to be an opticians. So I wrote a grant. We did an optician program for young people from the age of 18 to 24. And we hired he happened to have a full lab. So we hired a technician who taught them how to grind the lenses and prepare them for the glasses. And then we also had a program where we taught them how to fit people for their glasses. And so again, it was a wonderful opportunity that would not have happened had we not written the grant. And I remember in 1999, I went to work I was at my church, and this whole idea of welfare to work came out. And I was like, I really wanted to help women that was on welfare, be able to work their way off. And so I went to my pastor and I said, can I write a grant for welfare to work? The grant was out, and he said yes. So I wrote the grant, we got it. We were able to set up a program where we did literacy, adult basic ed, GED prep, and professional office skills with the full line of Microsoft programs. And we ran that program for about 4 years. Many women went through it. I mean, women would come in and they would be like broken down, looking bad. And in a couple of weeks after being in our environment, they would be looking good. They got the hair fixed, makeup on. They kept coming in looking good. And so out of that, we touched the lives of so many women that it wasn't in my church budget. I wouldn't have been able to do it, but we were able to do that. We also got grant funding for our food ministry. We would feed like 850 families a month. And then we also started a gym. We had one guy who was a former athlete. And so we started a gym. We got funding from the state. to be able to do that program and offer some special health programs with it. And so again, these are things that we did because we were able to access grant funding. I wouldn't have been able to do those things otherwise. Just the funding wasn't there for it. So that's my passion. I want to see our ministries and faith-based entrepreneurs equipped to be able to get the funding to fulfill the dreams and visions that God has given to them, whether it's in the church or in the community. Some of us are called to work in the church, some of us are called to work in the community. But either place, we need what? Money.
Yeah.
It takes money to do ministry, and we just have to be respectful. So let's go into the presentation, and I'm going to share my screen with you. There we are. So tonight, my objective is to have you to understand what foundations are and how they operate, and also understand how to access them and how to the grant writing process, at least. Okay, it's really an overview, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Okay, so our agenda for tonight, we're going to gain insight about foundations and nonprofits, learn where the money is.
Right.
And where to find the money. How do you find the money? Okay, how to determine which funders are going to be a good fit for you. Very important. And how to get the money. That's the grant part, right?
Yes.
The proposal process we'll talk about, the proposal components, and then we'll open for some review and questions and answers.
Wow, it's okay.
Okay. So, where do you find the money? Okay. And I can imagine, we're all asking, where's the money? Where's the money? Well, tonight you'll know where it is. And then the next step would be for you to learn how to get it, right? So, nonprofits and foundations in the U.S. Is there's just a huge number that are there, and I'm going to take you to another document and share that with you. And we'll take a peep at some basic information about this. Let me stop sharing this, and I'm going to go to another document and share it with you. Oh, that's what I got to go to. Give me a minute. Okay. Now, here we are. Okay. So let's look at some key facts about foundations and nonprofits in the U.S. There were 1,729,101 nonprofits in the U.S. Most of these numbers are like 2019 numbers, but it's reflective. It's only grown from here. Believe me, it hasn't changed much. So the first question, I want you to understand, what is a public charity? All right, over in the top right, it tells you that a public charity primarily administers programs, and occasionally they make grants, but it's really more about programs. And then what is a foundation? A foundation primarily gives money, and occasionally they may run programs, but primarily they give money. Okay. So if you look at this diagram, you can see that 72% of the 501c3s in this country are public charities. These are organizations that run programs, okay? And then about 7% are private foundations, and those are the ones that give money. And then the 21% would be the other category. Let's move to this next chart. Okay, so let's look at what are these foundations, what are these nonprofits, okay? So 27% of them are human services, providing some kind of social service or need. 19% are religious organizations, and then 14% education, and about 10% public and social benefits, and about 9% arts, okay? But let's look at this number down here, which is significant, this little chart here. It says that 75% of these nonprofits are operating with less than $100,000. 75%. So 13% is between 100,000 and 500,000. And then 4% between 500,000 and $1 million, 5% with $1 million to 4.9 million. And then there's only 3% that has over 5 million. So you can see the majority of nonprofits are operating, as I said, with less than $100,000. Okay, and the bigger organizations, you can see how they're represented. That other 25%, how it's divided up. So there are different types of foundations. Over here to your left, it says this independent foundations. And those include most of the nation's largest foundations, okay? And they're generally established by an individual donor or a family, a donor's family. So most foundations are established by a family or an individual. You'll hear of the Bill Gates Foundation, okay? You'll hear of the many other foundations that are related. You'll find a person's name attached to it. These persons decided to set aside a certain amount of their money into this foundation, and then that money is invested and continually grows to be able to continue to give. And long after many of these persons who started those foundations died, the family is continuing to carry these foundations on. Sometimes the family manages that foundation. Other times they will have someone else, another organization, to manage it. It might be a community foundations, which is what you see down here at the bottom. Okay, the community foundation handles a lot of foundations. Okay, so those are organizations that say, or families that say, we don't want to be in the business of screening grants, so we're gonna give authority to the community foundation to do that for us. Or it may even be a bank. So when you go on the bank's website and you see that they have their own foundation that they're giving money, you'll also see that they also have other people that they're managing their grant funding for. And this alleviates them having to have a team to be able to seek applicants, screen, and approve, okay? But other foundations will have a board, their own board, and they'll have a staff. That staff receives the grants. And then after going through them to make sure that they meet the requirements, then they will present those to the board that they're recommending for funding. And those board members, in most cases, will vote a block. Very seldom are they going to vote individuals, but they may. But most of the time, when the staff makes a recommendation of 10 organizations to fund, they're just going to vote for those 10. They may have some questions, wanting to be more detailed. So there's independent foundations and there's the operating foundations, and they primarily run their own programs. So some foundations you're going to find that are also running programs as well. Okay. So let's look at over on the right-hand side. Foundations giving is a modest but growing slice of the overall giving in the United States. This is significant. Do you see that green block there on the right?
Yes.
That's individual giving. 68% of the funds that are given by individuals, whether it's tithing or offerings in the church or being membership in different kinds of organizations or giving to like the United Way and organizations like that. But individual organizations are learning how to do fundraising where they can get individuals or organizations to become members of their nonprofit and to give on a regular basis, or they're having, great fundraising events. They're learning ways to raise this money. And that now represents 68% of the money. And then you see the foundations are only what? 18%. But we have this perception that it's all about the grants, but there are so many other opportunities out there to raise funds for your organization. Okay. So now let's look down here. And we see in 2013, the giving was like $52 billion. But by 2017, it was up to 72 billion. So you can imagine what it might be today, right? So here we see the total foundation giving was 119 foundations, was 119 foundations. 107 of them are independent corporate. The total assets that they have is $948 billion. The total giving is $57 billion. So you can see that they're giving a significant amount of money. And that only represents, remember, as we go back here, that only represents 18%. But they're giving like that. So let's look at this next chart here. Okay. What do foundations mostly fund? Health programs, education, human services, community and economic development, and arts and cultures. But the greatest amount we can see goes to health and education. Okay. Then the other question is what type, so when we're looking at a funder to see if they match us, okay, we want to look at what their funding priorities are. And every funder, their board meets once a year or once every couple years, and they make a decision of what they're going to spend their money on. Where do they want to invest their money? Okay. So on the right-hand side here is the other thing we have to consider, and that's the type of support. So whereas they're given to health organizations, are they given for program development? Are they given for general operating support? Do they give for research and evaluation? Do they give for policies, advocacy, and systems reform? or capacity building and technical assistance. Those are the primary areas, but there's many more areas that's not listed here of the type of giving they're giving. So it's what do they want to fund, which is the activity. And then the other thing is, how are they going to fund? General operating support means it can be used for anything. If they're giving to program development, that's only for you to develop this new program or to enhance a program that's existing. Okay. So if they're giving for capacity building, it's not for you to do the program. They're giving for you, your staff, and your organization to be built up and strengthened. Okay. So these are categories, again, that they give to economically disadvantaged people, like 34%, children, 23%, women and girls, 7%, racial and ethnic things, 7%, and people with disabilities, 3%. So again, all of these things matter when you begin to look at a funder. And I will be sharing with you how that works. Let's go back to our PowerPoint here. Okay. Okay, so where's the money? Federal government, state, local government. Okay, there's government grants, state and local government grants. Many times, once a bill is passed to fund a particular project, the government will send a certain percentage to the state, and it holds a certain percentage at the federal level to do federal grants. And then it sends a certain percentage to every state. And then that's the state now sends a certain percentage down to the local government, whether it's the county government or a city government. Depends on how big a city it is. If a large city like Houston would get their own funding, a small city may have to be in a group of cities, okay? So that's government money. Then we have foundation money, and that's what I was sharing with you about earlier. Foundation money, you're going to add, there's a certain way you have to access that, and we'll be talking about that in a minute. Then you have corporations like Halliburton, Shell, any major corporation has a foundation. You go to their website or you just Google them and Halliburton Foundation or Shell's Foundation, or just Google them and you'll come up. Wells Fargo, the banks, all of the banks have foundations. And Bank of America usually has a grant out right now every year. And that grant is for employment programs in educational kinds of programs, okay, like after school programs. And then in June, they have another round of funding, and that one's for community development, you know, like housing and those kind of things. So, but every year, Bank of America comes out with their grant. It's usually due in February, okay? So if you're looking for any money right now, this is a place to go, okay? Now, Wells Fargo, theirs is like all year round, but you know, some funders have specific ways they do things and it's at a certain time. Okay, so where to find the money and how grant makers can fit your cause. Okay, so there are a few primary places to look to get money. Okay, and the government grants, you're going to go to grants.gov, okay? And you'll go there and you're able to put in whatever topic you're looking for. And every grant that's available from the federal government is going to be on that site. And you just need to know how to search for it. In order to apply for a government grant, you have to register with a couple of their programs. to put you in a position so that when you find a grant that you want, that you'll be able to apply for it. Then the foundation directory online is the primary, for years, was the only source we had for finding funding foundations. And so back in the 70s, 80s, we had these huge books. We'd have to go to libraries that had them, and they had these, huge books. And we'd have to go through the book, find the city or the area, that the state that we wanted. And if it was a local grant, try to find out who funds within that area. But now everything is online, of course, which makes it so much easier. But the Foundation Center is, again, still the top choice. Okay. And then we have GuideStar, which also, now what's happened is the Foundation Center and GuideStar merged last year or a year or so ago, and now that it's called Candid, C-A-N-D-I-D. And so they're offering a lot more services now as a result of it. There's Candid. Okay. And then Grant Station. Grant Station is kind of a baby Foundation Center. It does not have the full range of foundations as the Foundation Center. So these are the places that you go to their website, and they have a funding library on their website, and you're able to search for foundations based on geography, where you're located, based on the type of funding that you're looking for, based on what your project is. So there's different categories that you have to put in. And when you put those categories in, all of these funders populate, and then you have to search through them and determine who do you feel is going to be a good match for you. Okay. So I want to pause and ask if you have any questions. Are we clear? Are you clear on that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can do it again. Okay. So this is the Foundation directory online. Okay. So there's just a wealth of information here. Everything you could possibly need. They have different categories where you can become a member. Okay. And I'm going to share that with you right now. Okay, let's see the payment options. So these are their payment options. You can do $49 a month and stop at any time. Or you could do $33.25 a month with a 1-year commitment. Or a one-time payment of $399. Or you can do $31.58 a month for 2 years, and do a 2-year commitment of $758. Now, for somebody who's going to be doing grants, this is an investment that you need to make. What I normally recommend for people that I'm working with is that they do the $49 a month. Do it at a time where you have a lot of time available to you. And you go on, you do all the searches you need, and then cancel it. That's why it says cancel at any time. So once you do all the searches you need, it's going to take time and work for you to contact those foundations and see if it's going to be a possibility for you. And then if 6 months down the road, you need it again, or next year, you go back on and you do a month again. And again, you do the searches that you need. And then from there, you do your research. But this is the godfather, you might say, the godfather of grant searches. Now, there's a lot of little ones that have come up, over the years. I'm going to close this and should come back. So there's a lot of little ones that have come up over the years, right? But this is still the primary one. Okay. Now, there's another one I'm going to share with you. It's called Grant Station. Okay. Okay. Okay, let me come back. And I'm going to share my screen again with you. Oh, here it is. Okay, this one is called Grant Station. Grant Station came on the scene many years after the Foundation Center. It's a great organization, but it does not have, it doesn't compare with what you have access to with the Foundation Center. And the reason why is because a lot of foundations don't have websites, but you can still find them on the Foundation Center, even if they don't have a website. And some of them here, okay. But Grant Station, I do happen to have a membership with them, and I'll share a little something with you from it so you have an idea of what I'm talking about here. Okay, so I want to find a grant maker. So I'm going to click right here, and I want a U.S. charitable. Okay, and so over here, I can tell it whether I want national or a global grant maker, or I could choose a state. Okay, so why don't I choose a state, and I'm going to do California. Okay, and what do you want to do, Mary Lee? What kind of program are you going to be doing? Mary Lee?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Work with the church, and it sounds like from what you were saying, capacity building is what we're looking at doing.
The church?
Uh-huh.
Was it any programs they wanted to do, or? Okay.
They're looking at doing some church, some youth program.
Youth programs. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. This is area of interest, right? Okay. And since it's the church, I'm going to do religious. And then I can choose Christian. Now, see, years ago, that would not have happened. Mm-hmm. But, they realized that, we have some good stuff that can change people's lives. And so, and then we have some Christians that's running some of these places, and that opened the door for us to now be able to apply for funding. So, okay, so you see what I did, right? I chose California. So under, now I can do, so you see these different categories: arts, civics affairs, economics, education, environment, wellness, disease, media, religious, whatever. Okay. So now I could say target population, right? And I want children and youth, right?
Yes.
Okay. And now I can do a search.
Okay. Was it
a particular program for the children and youth?
More or less like recreational and perhaps some educational skill building.
Okay, let's see. Oh, let's just do the search like it is. Okay, and see what happens.
Okay.
And we'll submit. Now see okay, this is California. But see, with the Foundation Center, I could do Los Angeles,
Oh,
which would bring it down. Okay, so here we are. These are the organizations that will give to Christian organizations. Okay, and then they tell you where they are. Kern County, Alameda County. This one's primarily Los Angeles metropolitan. This is Los Angeles, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Fresno, and there's two more pages of them. Okay, so I'm going to go into one because I want you guys to see what I'm going to be talking about. Okay, so let's try this one. Never heard of them, the Beckman Foundation. Okay, so this says that the foundation areas of interest is children, Christian churches and organization, education, human services, and health. So if you want to do an after-school program or something educational with youth, this could possibly be a great applicant. Okay, applicant procedures. Here it says interested applicants should submit a written request that includes a description of the organization, the purpose for which the funds are going to be requested, the amount requested. Applicants should also include a copy of your IRS letter. Okay, so let's see what they have over here. All right, California, focus Los Angeles. Here's your contact person right here. He's the president, right? Their total annual giving is small, 161,000. Okay. Eligible nonprofit. They have no deadline, which means you can apply anytime and they'll respond. Okay. So, let's look at somebody else. Say the other thing is the Foundation Center would also show you how much money they have.
oh, okay.
So you could do it by funding, how much money they have. Let me see. Okay, I think this is a big one right here. Carrying. All right. So here we go. Karen, Estelle, Donnie. All right, they do education. Okay. Okay, including inner city Catholic schools and scholarships for Catholic schools and whatever. Okay. They do medical, they do religious, funding to support gospel values, express, they're Roman Catholic, grants that are in the area of, so we don't want to bother with them. So you see how you weed them out?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Los Angeles too, let's see. Okay, here's this one. They say the Ellis family, children, youth, including at-risk youth, Christian organizations, health, hunger and poverty, social services. This is the type of funding they do: building fund, equipment, general operating support, and project support. So they do it all. That's really good. But let's see how much money they have over here. They have $1,207,000. Okay. Their average grant runs from $1,000 to $132,000. All right. And then they have their contact information. Application. Okay. So you can contact the foundation and get the application guidelines. Okay. So let's clear all of this. We're going to clear all of this. Okay. And And let's look at global, since Apostle Steve is here with us. Okay, so global. Okay, let's see if I put Christian in, what's going to happen.
Mm.
Religious, Christian. Okay,
Mhm.
so here is aid to church in need.
Mhm.
That sounds Catholic.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yes, let's look at aid to church in need. How about that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Aid to church in need. Oh, they're Catholic, work around the world to help Catholic and other Christians where
Okay.
they are persecuted or oppressed or in pastoral need. The focus is on providing help for the spiritual and pastoral work of the poor and persecuted. Support is provided for specific projects that will further the Catholic mission. Okay. All right. Let's see.
Mhm.
Building and repairing churches, broadcasting a Christian TV. Okay, let's find another one. Oh, there's 3 pages of them.
Uh,
Okay, this one says they do Protestant evangelical Christian grants in the United States and international. Let's see, who is this? The Hudson Foundation. Okay, the Hutton Foundation is committed to serving Protestant evangelical Christians need worldwide. Okay.
mhm.
Uh, the program supports organizations, okay, health and human services, education, civics, arts and culture, science, environmental. Okay. Protestant evangelical grant making. This program, I'm reading down here, provides supports to organizations whose activities serve to spread the gospel of Jesus nationally and internationally, and whose belief is congruent upon the book of the Old and New Testament and the King James Version of the Bible. Support for discipleship ministries, including seminaries, conferences, developing nations, and youth discipleship programs. Evangelical arts and culture, outreach missions. That might be your prison ministry, Pastor.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Including community projects and relations, education, healthcare, media, and evangelical ministries. While the foundation prefers to provide funding for specific projects and programs, grants are awarded for general operations and to capital projects to include the purchase of. Okay, wow. They only have $858,000, but they might give you some of that.
Mhm.
Mm. The grants are up to $100,000. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's keep them in mind.
Sure.
The Hooks Foundation. And let's look at one more, and then we're going to get back.
Right.
Conrad Hilton. Okay. This ranch, 25,000. Let's see who else. He's on the next page. See, the Mustard Seed Foundation. Let's see. Congregations in selected target cities worldwide are also supported. I wonder what their target cities are. Okay, here's the Mustard Seed Foundation. Hmm.
Mhm.
I don't see where they say who the selected cities are. I do know them, and I've written a grant for them before for church around the corner from my house.
Okay.
And they have an after school program, and we got
Mhm.
a computer lab from them for them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, so mhm. Oh, the Mcallen Foundation, they have a lot of money. Okay, here's the Mcallen Foundation. Their total annual giving, get this, is 24 million.
Wow, that's a lot.
Wow.
That's what
That's
I'm
so
used to
much.
seeing, you know?
Yeah.
hmm Okay, they're in Chattanooga, Tennessee. See if I can get back over here to see what they're doing here. Okay, the Mcallen Foundation supports Christian ministries in Chattanooga area. The foundation also supports ministries in the United States outside and support U.S. ministries internationally. Okay, it's got to be a U.S. based ministry. So
Mm.
Pastor Parker could access it. So disciple making, developing leaders, prayer and scripture, evangelism, generosity, and developing organizations.
Mhm.
Okay, need to definitely keep them in mind. All right, so that shows you what the grant search is like, you know.
Okay.
Again, as I said, the Foundation Center, they're 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 the godfathers. The Foundation Center has so much more and more flexibility. But this grant station is more affordable, you know. So
Mm.
let's get back to our PowerPoint.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, how do I wind up back there?
All right. All right.
Oh, I wonder if I picked the wrong one. Let me see. Stop sharing. I forgot I had two open on my. This is the one I want. Okay. So this is Houston. I'm not going to worry about sharing that with you guys. These are the major foundations in Houston.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna pass that up. Okay. All right, these are the major foundations in New York. And I'll pass that up. And these are the major foundations in Los Angeles. Okay. So we've got some foundations there with lots of money. Look at there. This one's $486 million. So you'll have this in the PowerPoint. Okay. And this is Louisiana. I did Louisiana because I thought Pastor Parker was going to be with us. So how to determine which funder fits you. 3 categories: geographic, pragmatic, that's what you're going to do. and then how they give, their type of giving they do. All right. So geographic is whether the city, the region, the state, the national. Again, as I said, with the Foundation Center, you could go down to the city, whereas with Grant Station, they go down to the state. All right. But when you look at geographic, you're looking at two things: where the funder is geographically, physically located, and then also where do they say they fund? Maybe they're in Houston, but they'll say they fund Houston, maybe someplace in Tennessee or whatever, and that's because there's some kind of relationship, in those different areas. And then others will say they fund nationally. That means they'll fund anybody anywhere in the country, but still you look at where they're located, could kind of tip you off that you want to, as much as possible, first of all, you want a funder who's physically in your area and is committed to giving in your area. That's your top priority. And then you go to the national or the one that's in another area that says they give it to your area, because the priority is going to be on where they're located. So again, when we think about geography, it's where they're physically located and also where they say they fund. Now, some are going to say any place that we have a business, we have a location for these national chains. So if it's like, Home Depot or Big Lot or something like that, they're everywhere, right? So you want to, consider that when you're thinking about geography. Okay. The next thing is pragmatic fit. Funders' funding priorities align with your vision. So their funding they set their funding priorities, and they'll say, well, this year we're going to give to women and children that are homeless, and we're giving to programs that's going to empower them economically, which might be jobs programs, or they might say we're giving to housing programs. So they're very clear on what they want to fund. They've surveyed the landscape, and they said, these are the problems that we see as most pressing at this time, and that's who we want to fund. If that's not you, don't waste your time, because there's so many other organizations out there that will be looking to fund what you do. But don't waste your time applying with someone who does not, their funding priorities does not match your vision or your mission for your program, or they're not in the geography. They match your vision, but they're not in the geography. Okay.
Okay.
And then
all right.
The final thing is the philanthropic fit, and that's whether it's general operating support or capital funding, or they're doing programs or equipment or whatever. And some will not do general operating support, so you want to be mindful of that and watch for that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So again, types of support. These are the different types of support. General operating grants, you can use it for anything: salary, rent, utilities, purchase products, purchase materials, whatever. Project grants is only for that specific project, okay? But it could cover everything within that project, So if it's a project grant and, it's going to be done in your church or your building, and you're paying maybe couple $1,000 a month, then you could say, well, $1,000 is going toward the space that they're using, or the utilities that they're using, those kind of things. Okay. So that's a project grant. And then general purpose grant, that means, again, it's unrestricted. You can use it anywhere. and then a seed money. Some organizations give seed money to help you get started. Okay. And usually that covers all. And then there's what we call challenge grant. A challenge grant is like, when you hear say, well, if you give $100, we have a donor that's going to match it with 200. That's a challenge grant. Okay. And matching grants. Okay. And then technical assistance grants, that's where usually it's to pay for a consultant to come in and help you to build up your organization or strengthen your organization. And then there's fellowships, which is more educational opportunities that come. So those are the different types of funding that's available. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So these are just some of the programmatic areas that a funder might be looking at: women, children, youth development, education, higher education, K through 12, preschool, economic disadvantage, religious, Christian organization, domestic violence. And we already looked at this. I took you to Grant Station. So how to get the money. This is the grant cycle. So you start off with an idea, and once you figure that idea out, then you want to find the funding, find the funder. That's what that research that I just took you through. That you're going to do that kind of research to find the funder. Or maybe somebody might just call you and say, hey, somebody has a grant out, and you're going to respond to it. Then you're going to develop your proposal. Submit your proposal. Once it's submitted, they'll usually tell you, well, we review proposals every month, or we review proposals every quarter, or we take proposals in from April 15th to June 15th, and then we award them the 1st of January. So they have a cycle. Every foundation has a cycle. Either they have a set time or they're just open to taking grants at any time. Okay. So once you're approved, then the award is set up and negotiate the payments schedule. Sometimes funders are going to give you all of the money up front, and other times they're going to give you portions of it on a timetable. So government funding many times is you spend it and then they pay you back. So you have to pay for this month's salaries, office, all of that stuff, and you submit them a bill and they pay you. Then they submit again, they pay you. So sometimes you have to have that startup money for that first month or two, because might take time for them to get that first payment to you. But once it starts rolling, as long as you get your billing in on time, you're going to get paid monthly. Okay. Now, I was fortunate when I did my welfare to work grant, they gave us funding up front.
Wow.
A portion of it up front. So that was enough to cover us for a couple of months. And then from that, we were to start submitting. Every month we submit what we spent and they would replenish it. Every month we submit what we spent, they would replenish it. Okay. So my first year, because I had to have they were kind of rushed to get the money out, and I needed to get my facility redone. It took a couple of months before I could start the program. So I didn't hire, I only had my significant staff, myself, my assistant, and my secretary. I didn't hire my teaching staff for 2 months. And so at the end of the year, I had an extra $20,000 left. And so I told them, I said, well, I have $20,000 left. They said, well, we don't want it back, take it and buy some computers or some books or whatever, for the program. So, but, I was on that schedule, submitting every month what I spent on staff, salaries, what I spent on purchasing books or materials or whatever, utilities, all of those things, submitting that monthly. And then every month, within a couple of weeks, I get a check, replacing that. So that's how some of the funding goes. Other times, others will give you the whole funding up front. I'm finding that fewer and fewer government grants give you the funding up front. Okay.
Okay.
And then managing your award, you know, you have to be very careful about how you I have people that are scared to get 501c3s, are scared to get grants. And I tell them, I said, you don't have to fear. All you do is do the right thing. You know? They're
Yeah.
afraid because they've heard these stories about people going to jail because of misusing the funds. It's because they did the wrong thing, you know. As long as you know it's not your money. So number one, that's you got to get in your minds that it's not your money. It is the organization money, and it's been given to you to do exactly what you said on that proposal. Now, if something comes up and you want to make a shift, you can always ask them if you can make a budget adjustment. Okay. And you say, well, okay, we don't need this over here, but we'd like to take this funding and use it over there and get approval to make the budget adjustment. Don't just do it on your own. You're supposed to be using the money the way you said you were going to use it in the budget, working the budget. And that's why it's important that you have someone working with you that, you know, that can manage the money well. All right. And then, usually at the end of the cycle, foundations almost never do audits. They'll ask you to present a report at the end of the year or quarterly, letting them know what you did, the number of people you serve, showing your success. But they'll very seldom, I don't think they'll do audits, but the government will do audits. They will check you, okay? So you make sure that you have that in line. And then closing out the project, usually they give you a short time, like maybe a month or so to close it out if your grant is ending. Many times they'll fund you for multiple years. So it depends, okay? Any
Okay.
questions on that? So how do you get the money? How does it start? Usually something like what we call an RFP, which is a request for proposal, an RFA, a request for application, or a request for inquiry, a request for quote. Usually a notice will go out. If you know where to look for the public notice, or if you've gotten on somebody's email list that sends these out in your area, then you could be among the first to know. If not, then it could easily pass and you never know. So it's important for you to find out whose email list you need to get on to make sure you know when a proposal in your area your area is going to be available. All right. Otherwise, when you're doing your search, you just have to hope that you hit it at the right time. And when you do your search, maybe it's February and you find a funder and you say, oh, they're perfect for me, but they don't accept grants till June. Well, make a calendar so that you know when to start working on that proposal to have it ready. All right. So, but it starts with the request for proposal. Okay. The request for proposal will be detailed, telling you what the projects they want to fund, what activities they want done, and what outcomes they're looking for. Okay. And you want to write the proposal according to that. All right.
Right.
You may find a foundation that fits your program or project, and they will ask you to apply in one or more ways. Okay. A letter of intent, many times it's the first step. Okay. Now we suggest that if you have a contact person, call them, tell them what you're doing, and tell them you'd like to know, would they consider funding it? Is this something that you would consider funding? Just make the phone call. Let them say yes or no. Why? Because you don't want to waste time creating a proposal and sending it out, and it's something that they're not going to be interested in. All right. So the first thing is the phone call. Now, if it's a proposal that's already out, then many times they'll ask for a letter of interest. A letter of interest could be 1 page, it could be 3 pages. Sometimes it's harder to write than the grant itself because you have to get so much information in a small amount of space. But the letter of interest is to give them a peek at what you're going to do, who's going to be doing it, how much it's going to cost, and what the outcomes are going to be. So it's really almost like a little mini proposal, okay? But you send that to them. Sometimes when there's a request for proposal out, the letter of interest will say, okay, the letter of interest is due February 4th, okay? If we decide that we want you to go forward with a full proposal, then we will notify you by March 28th. Okay. And the full proposal is going to be due April 1st. And we're going to fund it. A decision will be made by August 31st, and we're going to fund it by October 1st. So sometimes it's real clear like that. That's great when you can get it clear like that. But the letter of interest is first. And if you don't do the letter of interest, many of them you cannot apply. That's the first step. If you miss the first step, you can't apply. Others, they will take your application. Okay. Some funders are going to have application forms. Now, the key, everyone that had applications forms, now they're on the web. They're online applications. Okay. And then, as I said, once you submit that online application, you will, if it's a letter of intent, they'll ask for the full proposal, and otherwise you'll get a chance to, even most of the proposals are online right now. You just go in and answer the questions. So if you have a nice, what I do in my grant writing class, I teach you how to write the core components. And if you write those core components and have them available, you can do grant after grant and just customize them for every grant, you know? So that's the idea. Don't wait until something's available. Do it in advance. Write up your there might be there's a section about the program that you want to do. Okay. There's a section on the need statements. You have to show them that there's a need using research information, like from the census or whatever, telling them what the poverty rate is or what the dropout rate is in the area, depending on what you're looking for funding for. So you'll have to justify the need. So that's a need statement, so we call it. And I'll get to that in a minute. But usually the first step is either a letter of interest or the full proposal. Okay. Okay, some organizations will put the RF when they're seeking to release money. It's the request for proposal. I just talked about that. The letter of intent, I just talked about that. So we'll move to the next slide. Okay, so what do you need to do? Number one, you need to clarify your program or project. Clarify who your customers are, who you're going to serve, and the geographic area you're going to serve them in. And you have to be descriptive about your customer, okay? And number three, you clarify what type of funding you need and how much, okay? Do you need general operating support, to pay salaries, to pay rent, to buy equipment? Do you need funds to buy things? So if you've got a youth program, maybe you want to buy food for them after school or something. So what is it that you need and how much? Okay. And then once you figure those three things out, go to the funding libraries and find a funder that fits you. But you need to do this research in advance so that when you start looking, you know what you're looking for, you know what your match is going to be. Once you do that, get to know the funder, study the funder, go to their website, learn all you can about them, see what they funded already. On the funder is 990, which is a public document. You can see every organization that they funded and how much they gave. That will help you to see kind of how much they're giving, okay? And then number
Alright.
6, connect with the funder before you start writing the writing. Connect with the funder before you start writing. And here's some questions you might want to ask them is what's an appropriate amount to ask for? What is their process? And then you might say, well, I saw the instructions on the website. Has anything changed? Or should I just be following those instructions? Okay. So
Mhm.
So you're going to do your research for your demographic information, determine who your staff is and the salary that you need, get the cost of your facilities, your rent, get your budget information, all right?
Right.
And then your program material, curriculum, those kinds of things. You do all of this before you even, start writing the grant. Have that information ready, okay?
Mhm.
Key
Okay.
things you need before writing. What's your mission? Okay, so you're going to need your mission statement. You're going to need a copy of your articles of incorporation to submit, a copy of your 501c3 letter. Some will ask for your EIN letter. Sometimes you'll need your DUNS number, particularly if it's, a government grant. A list of your board members and what they do. Your org chart, some want the org chart. All of them don't. They may ask for job descriptions, org chart of the program. What if it's the project? Then it's just the project. If it's the your general operating funds and they need it for the whole thing. Job descriptions, you're going to talk about that, okay? The number of full-time and part-time staff, and then current resumes on like the manager and the key staff persons. So those are the things that you need to have in hand and be ready for when you start writing your grant, things you have to submit.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
A most recent of your budget, and they'll want your last year financials. They love audited financials, but audited financials are very expensive. So your 990 or your financial statement, many of them will take that. If you have audited financials, you can get almost any grant if you have a good audit. Okay. Your annual report, if you have one. Many people are no longer doing that. A list of your current funding sources. Nobody wants to be the only funder. So they want to know who else is funding you. Okay, which if this is your first grant, there's your personnel policies and procedures, your organization history. There's a section in the grant where you have to talk about how the organization came into being and the purpose of the organization. And talk about your current programs, okay, even if it's a project, but that you're funding, they want to get a picture of who you are already, what you're doing. And remember, I talked about that needs statement, a description of the community and the needs for the program. And then a list of existing formal linkages, other organizations in the community. Go out and start building relationships with organizations that you might refer your customer to, your client to, the persons you're serving to, that you can share a customer, maybe you have an after school program, but maybe there's a mentoring program, that you might want to get your kids connected with. But look for linkages, that might be available to be able to collaborate with you and serving your customers. You don't have to share money with them, but you're both serving, they're referring people to you and you're referring people to them. Any recent needs assessments or program evaluations or examples that you might have had done already. And that, of course, that's existing programs. And any recent publicity, any news clippings about you or your staff itself would be great. So the project development, you need a clear mission statement, outline of your project, You have to develop your idea in an outline form. You've done your basic budget research. You have thought about the contacts with essential personnel besides yourself who will be involved in the project. You've collected the endorsements and support materials, okay? And then finding research. You've researched and refined your prospect list. You have requested guidelines in your annual report. You have the name and of the contact persons for each funder that you want to write to. And you've researched the average grant size that the funder makes. And you can do that again, like on the Foundation Center, they'll have a link to that, but if you can also look them up, they're $9.90. Okay. Okay, the proposal components. So you first have your cover letter and possibly a title page. Now, if you're doing it online, of course, there's no cover letter, no title page. Your table of contents, all right? Your project summary or introduction, or they may call it the executive summary, okay? And that's just like a one-pager. That's a summary of the whole grant. And then your needs statement, okay, which is very important. You've got to show that why they should be funding this, okay? Your objectives, you know, what are you going to be doing? Your plan, outline your plan or your methods of how you're going to do it. How are you going to evaluate the program? Very important. They want to see an evaluation plan, program evaluation plan, and organization evaluation. And then for personnel, you want brief bios on the staff, a budget, a 1 or 2 page budget. Now, some funders will ask for budget justification. Most will just want a budget. Budget justification means that you have to also write a paragraph on the budget justification, a few lines explaining why you need, what that's going to be used for. Okay. Other funding you receive, future funding and support, and official certification and signatures and supporting documents. And I'm going to stop right there. Questions?
No question. A lot of work.
Yes, it is a lot of work. It is. It is.
Yeah.
But you know, once you do it and you have a good working, you know, need statement, a history of the organization, a description of your program, and once you do that, you have it, you know, and then each funder is going to be asking questions differently. So you just customize it so that it makes sense based on the way the funder asks the question. So if you do the work, now let me tell you something. Not only is this preparation for you for grant writing, but it will help you to perfect your program too.
Yeah.
By doing this work, you see, because this is the stuff that we don't get done, right? Okay.
Right.
So,
Right.
yes. So, any questions? All right. So I'm going to
Not really.
go back,
So
share my screen.
Okay.
Give me a moment here.
I'm switching
Okay.
because this one is 5 years out.
All right. So let me share with you, I will be doing a grant writers class. It's going to be the end of February. Maybe I changed the dates because I realize I'm going to be in training that whole week before. So
Okay.
it's gonna start Friday the 25th instead. Oh, you changing? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it's about to
Very
go out.
good.
I didn't want to miss
All right.
any.
So we're gonna have a boot camp. The boot camp is gonna be all day Friday, and all day Saturday. And then, and I dropped the price. You'll see I dropped it $50. God just told me to make it a little more affordable. Okay. And then the weekly class, I'm offering it both ways. A boot camp for those people who like to just get it and get it done. Okay. And that'll be Friday and Saturday from 9 to 5. And then if not, you can do it weekly, starting that following Tuesday. And it's 7 weeks from 6:30 to 9 on Tuesdays. So you have two options. And the bonus is that you're going to get 2 hours of free coaching with me to review your components as you develop them. Okay. So
Okay.
registration's on Eventbrite. And I'm very excited about it. I'm really committed to getting these skills into the hands of as many of our people as we can. And I'll tell you, you can see how much it is, right, Mary Lee? So
Yeah.
I see this is a fundamental foundation nuts and bolts class. So we're going to learn and we're going to do. We're going to learn and we're going to do. We're going to learn and we're going to do. Okay. So
Right.
that way, when you leave, you will leave with many of those components at least started, if not finished. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
you're going to leave with something in your hand, okay, to be able to finish working on. Now, my dream is to have people come and take my class, this foundational class, to go out there and write a few grants. And then after you've written a few grants, then go and take an advanced class, if you really want to become a skillful grant writer. So this is the foundational, but you're going to learn the nuts and bolts here, and I wouldn't advise anybody to go take an advanced class before you get the nuts and bolts. But get the nuts and bolts and then put it to practice. Just write a few grants. And once you've written a few grants and gotten a feel for it, then go on and take an advanced class, So that's my recommendation. Okay, well, I thank you both so much for coming. I thank you for your time. And I'm just grateful to God to have the opportunity to share this with you. And looking forward to our class the end of February. And I just pray that God will bless you with whatever it is that He has on your heart to do, that He will make the provisions that's needed and give you the support, the finances to do it. Hallelujah.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
praise
Amen.
God. All right. Well, praise the
Hallelujah.
Lord. You guys
Thank you.
enjoy the rest of this month.
Yeah, I
All
want to.
right. Thank
The
you.
month's
greatly
almost
appreciate.
over.
Oh, this
greatly
was such a
appreciate.
blessing. Such a blessing.
Yeah.
Thank
Really
you. Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, greatly appreciate the information was so much and rich, and it's so much eye-opening, and there's a lot I have learned today, and I know helped me a lot in whatsoever thing I want to write and the approach I'll give it. So thank you so much for allowing
And
God to use
Apostle,
it.
look around your ministry and see who might be a good writer there that might be able to take the class and write for you. Raise up your own grant writing. See, my thing was, if I pay somebody to write a grant, then I got to pay somebody the next time, right?
Right.
But if I invest in learning to write the grants for myself, I can keep. I say it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's the way I look at
then
it.
even you can begin to help others, Mary Lee, help others,
Yes, that's exactly.
And I don't know much about the foundations in Kenya, but I will do some research for you and see what I find out. Okay. And what even for the foundations that's here that gives internationally to find out what do they require, as well. So I will check into that for you. Okay.
I will greatly appreciate.
Certainly. So God bless both of you.
So
I love you much.
Amen.
And I look forward to seeing you next month. Bye-bye.
Yes. All right.
Bye-bye. God bless.
And
Thank you so much.
tell somebody about the training. All right.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.